Good morning, grade 10s, and welcome back to the next lesson on Finders Keepers, the author Rosamund Hayden. Now, grade 10s, it's been a day or two since you and I last spoke, but for me, I'm just carrying on directly from the previous lesson. Now, I introduced Finders Keepers, the novel, to you last time, and we spoke about the different aspects of a novel, and we looked at things such as the plot, which we know is going to be the story. We looked at things like the setting, we looked at characters, and we said a little bit about the themes. Today, we're going to look closer again at setting, which is where and when, and in doing that, we're going to be looking at, as we did just in the previous lesson, we're going to be looking at the 4 provinces, Limpopo, Gauteng, Western Cape and Eastern Cape for setting. We also looked at the prologue, which is the introduction or the before the actual book starts. We read that, and the book opens with the word I, and then we discussed that I means the first person narration, so the first person storyteller. So we're going to read it from the point of view of an I character, somebody telling the story, I, me and mine. There is another a third person narration later on in the novel, but for the time being we're going to be looking at first person narrator, and we know her name is Lufuno. So Lufuno will now start in chapter 1 with her story, and again, grade 10s, I'm reading to you. You may do whatever makes you happy. If you want to follow on this video, as I read, I am going to use a little page as I go along, or maybe I might even use my ruler, or maybe sometimes my finger, or maybe sometimes nothing. Same goes for you. You do what works for you. I'm not expecting any of you to follow on this video. I'm expecting you to be listening to my voice and then to be following in detail in your book, and following in this novel as I read to you. And then from time to time when I read to you, please remember that I might replace words that I think are a bit complicated or difficult. I'll give you a synonym that you can understand what that word means, and often I replace them with words that are taken from the bottom over here. And often I'll stop and I'll discuss things with you, and then we carry on reading. So I know when I stop, I frustrate you, because you're trying to read the novel and I keep stopping to explain. But remember, it's those explanations that you are going to need in the exams. So listen carefully when I explain them, please. All right. So without any further ado, wait, before I start reading. Grade 10s, let's get it quite clear right now. This little book is going nowhere. You are going to read it, and then you are definitely going to write exams on it. It's a fact. It's going to happen. So when I read it to you, please concentrate. Follow. This is your work. You know, your mother and father are working from home, or they're in the car every day. Oh, and with that, allow me please to tell you that today we have 2 studio guests. We have Buster and we have the bee. So they have obviously now spotted the cat. So that should be quite entertaining. I can't see the cat in the garden, but nonetheless. Back to Finders Keepers after that little studio guest visit. Buster, you better stop barking. All right. You're gonna read this book. In the same way that your mom and dad go to work every morning, this is your job. So get to it. Whether it be in the physics class, or whether it be in the geography class, or wherever it is, you concentrate there. You've got to concentrate here too, please, grade 10s. So allow me then to start and to read the novel to you. Now remember, you have the book in front of you. So don't try and focus on the video, because that's not going to help you. You've got the book in front of you, so follow there. It's Monday morning and the sky is clear. Spring holds the promise of summer in its rays of sunshine. So there we've got the when, hey? Where is the setting? Setting is where and when. And we've got the when. We know that it's Monday morning, the sky is clear, and spring holds the promise of summer in its rays of sunshine. I wake up thinking I'm still in Josie, but the sounds are wrong. Where's the stuttering of our neighbours Isuzu Baki? Or Mam Morudo's Rebecca Malope gospel track that wakes up the entire street? Instead, there is our landlady's high-pitched, nagging voice scolding her full-grown son like he's a little toddler. And the dog whining. The dog whining. And the dog whining on its chain in the yard. My mood does not match this Cape Town spring day. So we've moved now. She's referred to Gauteng and to Josie, where she comes from. And she's now moved to this Cape Town spring day. And she says her mood does not match it. Why? Why is she down in the dumps? What's wrong? She says, my mood does not match this Cape Town spring day. I'm not light and carefree, but I'm overcast with worry because today is my first day at Victory High. A new school, in a new township, in a new city. Now, great teens, you can all relate to this. It happened to you when you were in grade 8. You had to come through those big gates at school Oosterlig, and it was dreadful. It was a new school, new people, new teachers, new uniforms. Everything was strange. You loved seeing somebody you knew. But there were lots of other fearful things around you. Many of you have changed schools halfway through a year before, and you know that anxiety, that fear, that worry about what's it going to be like. Am I going to make new friends? Am I going to fit in? Am I dressed in the correct uniform? Is my cell phone as good as the person next to me? What are they going to think about my school bag? What does my hair look like? Will they like me? And all those questions go through you. Now, those of you that have moved from one town to another or from one province to another will know that's even worse. Sometimes you come from an area where it is predominantly English speaking or Afrikaans speaking, and you're moving into another area that's not the same. So you worry about all those things. Because you see, as I said to you just now, if there's one thing I've learned about teenagers, while you all want to stand out and you all want to be unique, you're all exactly the same. You all have very similar anxiety and worries. So she says her mood doesn't match this Cape Town spring day. She's not light and carefree. She is worried because she's at her new school. So you attend Hoërskool Oosterlig. She attends at her new school called Victory High in a new township in a new city. And my best friend Dudu isn't here to accompany me to school. Now, if you want to write Dudu's name in your little character column, you're welcome to. And my best friend Dudu isn't here to accompany me to school. Dudu, who I always relied on to pave the way for me and to give me courage. The sound that started every school day in Josie is missing. Dudu's cheerful voice as she flung open our door on her way to school and stood with hands on her hips, a beam on her face. Good morning, McQuerville family. Greetings on the first day of the rest of your lives. So now we know our first person narrator, surname is McQuerville. It was Dudu who took it upon herself to help me fit in and shine at our primary school in Soweto when I was 6 and we moved from Venda. So now we know that she was 6 years old when she moved from Venda to Josie, and this is where she met Dudu. And she says, it was Dudu who taught me how to say, stop bothering me, in isiZulu. I'll show you the ropes and you'll soon be swinging from the ceilings, she used to joke as we ran down to the special store. Now, show you the ropes means I'll show you how things work around here. I'll show you the ropes and you'll soon be swinging from the ceiling, she used to joke as we ran down to the special store, our local spaza shop where you could just buy just about anything. Notice special store is with capital letters, so we know that's the name of the shop. Whether it be Spar or Pick n Pay, this specific store is called special store. If Dudu were here, she would strut her stuff into the school grounds. Her quote for the day would keep up our spirits as we entered our new class, proud of who we were, heads held high. But this morning, instead of Dudu, I have only one tiny, delicate thing to bring me luck, my bead bracelet. It's much too small to wear around my wrist now, but it fits perfectly into the palm of my hand. I feel the beads cool and smooth between my fingers. The bracelet means everything to me. I fear if I lose it, I will disappear, evaporate like the muddy brown water of the Levubu River near my grandmother's house in Venda. I'll be sucked up by the summer sun. We used to visit my grandmother in the holidays. I remember the lush green bush outside Toyando where she lived. We slept on reed mats on the cow dung floor of her rondavel, and she told us stories of Lake Fundutsi and the water spirits, and stories of how, as a girl, she had danced the python dance at the coming-of-age ceremony where the chief chose his next wife. So there we now have Lufuno telling us a lot about her traditions and the culture of the Ivenda tribe where she was born, or where she was raised for the first 6 years of her life. And she now tells us that while she's extremely nervous, what she does have with her is a tiny little beaded bracelet. And we know that this has something then. This bracelet is something of extreme value to her. It is this bracelet that if it should disappear, she feels as if she too will evaporate. And we now read about Lufuno's father. My father's family was from Toyando, but my mother was born and raised in the village where my granny lived. I am a mixture of my parents. I have my father's oval face, long thin legs and arms, and I have his shyness. But in every other way I am like my mother. I have her wide-eyed set eyes, I have her dark skin tone and her smile. My granny said I was as pretty as a pumpkin flower, and that I would be as beautiful as my mother one day, even if I did have my father's thin arms and legs like a cricket. How can someone as thin as a twig carry that? My granny would joke when my father lifted anything heavy. My grandmother made me this tiny bracelet of white, red, and blue beads. Together they told of a message of love for me. A little girl born out of my mother and father's love for each other, and named Lufuno to express that love. On the last day I saw my grandmother, she slid that tiny bracelet over my fingers and around my wrist with her old hands, lined from years of hard work in the fields, but smooth to the touch from the clay she worked with. I didn't know that it was the last day I would see her, but I remember that day. I replay it again and again in my mind like a video clip, frightened that one day the colors will grow dim and the people will blur and I will forget my grandmother's face. In that video clip, I see my mother, tall, strict, but fair, slow to get angry, but fierce when she finally does. Now there's a lovely character description of Lufuno's mother. So remember that, and we'll come back to that when we need to know more about her mother. Slow to get angry, but fierce when she finally does. She's picking morogo from my granny's vegetable garden for lunch. Morogo is like spinach. It is a special day. We are celebrating my mother's recovery from TB. TB is tuberculosis. It's a lung disease. She has suffered from this from the past 2 years, and now she's back to her outgoing self, laughing and enjoying being together with her family again. My sister is running, shrieking with delight, over the grass on wobbly toddler legs, chasing after the dog who has run off into the lush green bush after a lizard. The rich voice of my grandmother's favorite gospel singer, Asnat Malutsi, crackles in the thick, heavy heat of midday. The monkeys in the trees curse us with their high-pitched shrieks. My grandmother walks across the yard to me, holding something in her hand. When Mr. Guineafowl dies, his children scatter, she says, sliding the bracelet around my wrist. I don't know why she has chosen this Tshivenda proverb, but now I think maybe she knew then that she wouldn't see us again, that she would soon be dead and her chicks would be scattered. My mother walks inside with a big bunch of morogo and the music is switched off. My sister comes running over to me holding a butterfly that she's caught in the bush. She opens her chubby hands and the butterfly escapes and flies away. I remember the color of its wings, brown with a yellow and orange pattern. In my dreams, I see that butterfly escaping from its cage of fingers. All right, so grade 10s, this whole first of chapter 1 has been predominantly covering the beginning, the roots, as well as the cultural and traditional values, as well as a good character sketch of Lufuno's mother, and obviously then of Venda. We know that she is living in Cape Town, and she's thinking back to when she was a little girl, to the last day when she saw her granny alive, and her granny gave her the tiny little bracelet and stuck it onto her, or put it onto her little wrist. This is the first day of the rest of your life, I imagine, Dudu's cheerful voice as I get out of bed in our backyard shack. I pull on my school uniform and look at myself in the narrow mirror propped against the wall. Thin, flat-chested, my hair plaited against my scalp. When all the girls I've seen on the street have braids and weaves, I want to climb back into my bed and pull up the blankets over my head. So here she says she's worrying because she doesn't look like the other girls. Lufuno, you're going to be late, my mother calls me. Hurry up. I slide the bead bracelet into the pocket of my school blazer, swing my school bag over my shoulder and go out to meet her in the yard. Remember, my mother starts saying as she straightens my tie. I roll my eyes. I know what's coming. Yes, Ma. I must remember who I am. I must be proud of the language I speak, my mother tongue, I recite. My mother used to shake her head at the children of relatives who couldn't speak Tshivenda anymore after they moved to Josie. My mother is strong on traditional values and culture, and she is stubborn and thinks she's always right. I know I'm being rude, but I'm sick of standing out when all I want to do is fit in. I'm a teenager, I argue. We have our own culture. Sound familiar, grade 10s? My mother flashes me a warning look. I was going to say, remember to catch the taxi that goes to Vilakazi Road. I was going to say, if you get home before me, start cooking supper. I will try to get off early, but I might have to work late. And she adds, frowning at me, don't assume what I'm going to say, and don't interrupt. Then her face softens and she kisses me quickly on the cheek. Good luck. I will think of you. I hope your first day goes well, and I hope you make lots of friends. There can't be another Dudu, I say. My mother strokes my cheek, but says nothing. I watch her until she turns the corner and is out of sight. My mother has worked hard her whole life. In Josie, she cleaned offices, and then she became the receptionist. When my father got the job at On the Rise Bakery, she made sure she got one too. They work long shifts. When my dad comes home tired and wanting to watch sport on TV, my sister asks him for stories from the factory. To her it is a magical place, but to my mother and father it means our survival. The street is a fast-flowing current of people on their way to work. Berets pulled down over ears as protection from the wind. Older children on the way to school, moving jostling groups, pushing roughly. Little kids play in the rubble on the street. Rubbish is everywhere. Plastic bags wrap around electricity poles in the wind. The contents of black bin bags overflow onto pavements. Dogs scrounge for scraps. "Morning!" Our landlady, Mrs. Yankees, greets me from the yard in front of our shack. She leans over the fence where she has been hanging washing and beckons me to come closer. The washing flaps and twists in the wind. Sand blows everywhere, stinging my face, getting into my hair. Mrs. Yankee's son, Ricardo, now you might want to write that down. Mrs. Yankee's son, Ricardo, is fixing the old Ford Escort in their driveway. As I come closer, he revs the engine. He has the radio on full blast. Around here, everyone has a different taste in music. It's gospel for my mother, old-fashioned crooners for Mrs. Yankees, Beyonce for Ricardo, and Zahara, my current favorite, for me. Petrolheads. That's what they call guys like Ricardo. Obsessed with cars. I saw a show about it on TV. "I'm pimping my ride," he jokes. "I'll take you down to the beach. I just need a few more parts and then we can cruise." "And what about me?" says his mother petulantly, in a bad mood, sulking, like she's been left out. Then she turns to me. "Tell your mother and father the union has called a strike starting tomorrow. Anything told me from Anthony, another character. Anthony told me from tomorrow you will stay at home. If your parents break the strike, there will be trouble." Anthony is Ricardo's brother, the good son, with the job that puts food on the table. Ricardo is the wayward son, the difficult to control, doesn't follow the rules, the good-looking son. But he's the one who is friendly and always greets us. Anthony always scowls at us across the fence. He will know if my parents go to work. I must warn them that he will be all eyes and ears. "So, can I take you for a ride?" He turns down the volume slightly so he can hear my reply. Mrs. Yankee shakes her head like she doesn't understand him and goes back inside. "I'll think about it," I say. If Dudu were here with me, she would twirl the end of one of her braids around her finger, considering that offer. "I'll get back to you on that," she would say, and saunter off. And when we were around the corner, we would burst out laughing. If Dudu were with me, I wouldn't worry that I might be the only girl in the class who can't speak isiXhosa properly. Or, if Dudu were with me, I wouldn't worry that I have moved schools towards the end of the year. The principal has made a concession. With other words, he's given unusual permission for something. He's made a concession for me when my mother explained our situation, that she and my father were retrenched from jobs in Josie and offered work here at the Cape Town factory. My mother assured the principal that I would catch up. I would work hard and I was a diligent student. The language wouldn't be a problem, she said. But of course it would be a problem. I would stand out with my strange accent and my mother's skin that swallows the light, it is so dark. Now remember that she was born in Limpopo. She comes from Venda and so does her mother. And she's moved down here to Cape Town now. Now everybody knows that the further you move away from the equator, the lighter one's skin becomes. So we now realize that Lefunu has a darker skin than what the people in the Western Cape have. And we now are told by Lefunu that this makes her very self-conscious. She's very aware of the fact that she speaks a different language. She speaks with a different accent. And then she's got this dark skin and everybody else has a light skin. What doesn't break you makes you stronger. That would probably be Dudu's saying to get me through the day. I join the stream of people on their way to the taxis at the end of the road. I know the one I need to take. On the weekend, my father came with me to learn the route to my new school, but I can't remember anything now. I am so anxious. Up ahead of me, on the corner, there is a cluster of people outside the Somalian spaza shop. Next to them on the pavement, a woman is selling smileys on an open fire with a grid resting on the bricks. Now, if you go down here and you look for the meaning of the word smiley, you'll see colloquial. Now, remember we spoke about the word colloquial, local is lekker. Colloquial for sheep's heads. Now, grade 10s, what happens is they braai a sheep's head on an open fire. But as the meat cooks, so it moves away from the teeth of the sheep, and it looks as if all these sheep heads lying on this grid braaiing, as if they're smiling at you because their teeth are so extended, and they're called smileys. So here she tells us, next to them on the pavement, a woman is selling smileys on an open fire with a grid resting on bricks. And a smiley is a delicacy in certain cultures, in the same way as what certain cultures have uncooked fish, such as sushi, or some cultures eat mopani worms. We now have the smileys, and they are on the open fire. I pass the Vodacom store and the Promised Land Barbers, which promises hairstyles for the stars, with a painting of a cheeskop on the corrugated walls. Cheeskop is a type of a style of hairstyle. Nobody's in the barber seat yet, but the owner smiles and greets passers-by in the expectation of a better day of business. As I get closer to the spaza, a small group of guys who have bought a single cigarette are sharing a light, cupping their hands around the flame to keep out the wind. One looks up and sees me. He says something to the others, and suddenly they're all walking towards me. They must be 17 or 18. School dropouts with big plans and small budgets, teasing girls and making trouble. I tried to avoid them, keeping my